Welcome to the news in Africa and the world. We open today's edition in Ivory Coast. Former Ivorian head of state Henry Konan Bedi has been nominated as candidate for the Democratic Party of Ivory Coast, the PDCI, in the upcoming October presidential elections. He stands out with a 99.7% of the vote at the end of an election among party members which took place in Abidjan on Monday. His potential challenger, Kouadio Konan Bertin, whose candidacy had been rejected, denounced the absence of democracy within the party. In power from 1993 to 1999, Henry Konan Bedi was overthrown by a military coup, the first in the history of Ivory Coast. By representing himself again to the Supreme Magistracy, he affirms to fulfill a mission of public safety to restore peace in the country. Leaders of the West African Regional Bloc ECOWAS adopted on a summit in Mali a tough four-point plan to resolve the political crisis, with the most striking one being the resignation of 31 parliamentarians elected in disputed polls and for the swift creation of a unity government. The 15 head of state did not request the resignation of embattled President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, but rather called for a reform aimed at rapidly restoring peace in the country. Addressing demands by protesters that Keïta quit, the bloc maintained Mali's democratic constitution had to be respected and asked ECOWAS Commission to consider sanctions against all those who act contrary to the normalization process of the crisis. The recommendation showed that both parties will have to give ample room to claim victory and a safe phase. Mali's presidential office later announced that a stripped-down cabinet comprising Prime Minister Bouba Cissé and 6 ministers will work to form a unity government. Tanzania opposition politician and presidential hopeful Tundu Lissu has returned from exile in Belgium, where he spent 3 years seeking medical care. This following an aggressive attack after sustaining multiple gunshots. Arriving on Monday, he was welcomed by hundreds of supporters who clamored around his car as he waved from an open sunroof. The 52-year-old human rights lawyer, who was stripped of his parliamentary status in June 2019, has shown interest to run for the presidency to challenge John Magufuli. Tanzania will hold a general election in October 28, 2020. Looking at the global pandemic that has ravaged the world, Kenya has finally strengthened its containment measures as new cases surge after initially deconfining 3 weeks ago. The curve is reoccurring dangerously, with a peak expected in August to September. With 18,000 cases of COVID-19, curfew has been extended for 30 days, closure of restaurants as from 7 p.m., the total closure of bars until further notice, and the ban on the sale of alcohol throughout the country. Total lockdown of activities has, however, not been envisaged by President Uhuru Kenyatta, as the economic crisis promises to be catastrophic for the country. Out of the African continent, the world's biggest COVID-19 vaccine test got underway with 30,000 planned volunteers in the United States. President Donald Trump went to see for himself what is happening at one of the coronavirus vaccine development sites in North Carolina. The experimental vaccine is made by the National Institute of Health and Moderna, and it's one of the several candidates in the final stretch of global vaccine race. There's still no guarantee that the experimental vaccine will really protect. They needed proof when more people to get dummy shots become infected than those given 2 doses of the real vaccine. The race to develop a vaccine is unfolding in several countries, 160 and under development. In Great Britain, the University of Oxford phase 1 and 2 that took place in April in south of England on more than 1,000 healthy volunteers between ages 18 and 55 and is promising. In Belgium, Prime Minister Sophie Wilmès put the brakes on country's coronavirus exit plan, unveiling a set of drastic social distancing measures aimed at avoiding a new general lockdown amid a surge of COVID-19 infections. Speaking after an urgent meeting of the National Security Council, she said that from next Wednesday, contact outside every household will be limited to 5 people over the next 4 weeks, and it applies to a household and its occupant and not an individual. The measures don't apply to children under the age of 12. The PM added lowering crowd limit at public events to 100 people indoors and 200 people outdoors could be sufficient to avoid further restrictions and to ensure children can return to school en masse in September after the summer break. Belgium has witnessed a surge in confirmed cases over the past 3 weeks. Monday figures shows the number rose to 70% from July 17 to July 23. And mayors of 6 U.S. cities have appealed to Congress to make it illegal for the federal government to deploy militarized federal agents to cities that do not want them, even as the Trump administration is considering sending more of them to Portland and Oregon. The request came on the same day the U.S. Attorney for Oregon announced the arrest of 22 people on charges of stemming from clashes with federal and local police at the federal courthouse in Portland. U.S. agents repeatedly fired what appeared to be tear gas, flashbangs, and pepper balls at protesters outside the federal courthouse. The appeal followed a surge in Black Lives Matter protests over the weekend, with an escalation in violence and the appearance of white supremacists and an armed black militia. Trump's administration says the forces are needed in Portland to protect the courthouse and other federal buildings. But mayors said the officers have patrolled areas distant from federal properties and arrested citizens without cause. Thanks for watching, and see you again next time.